Sweet, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Narik Chase channel. I'm your boy Narik Chase, and in this video we're going to be doing another Streamline podcast. For those who don't know, the Streamline podcast is where I pick 3 subjects in the news or sometimes ideas or questions or something like that, and I elaborate on a video, and I sit there and go in depth about things I like about it, my ideas and my thoughts and my opinions about it. Now, before we get into the video, guys, I need you to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got on this channel. We are going to be uploading videos weekly, so trying to be a bit more consistent. Again, I work 3 jobs, so I'm always at work all the time and stuff. As you can see, my room is a mess. I need to clean up this office, but a lot of creative people are very messy people. So having said that, let's go ahead and talk about the 3 subjects, 3 topics that I wanted to talk about. First, Chloe Bennett departing the CW's Powerpuff Girls live action series. Idris Elba is going to play Knuckles in Sonic 2. And third, more Godzilla Kong Monsterverse movies on the way. Now, as far as the Chloe Bennett departing the CW's Powerpuff Girls live action series, now in my previous podcast, I believe Streamline Podcast episode 79, I did say that I was interested in the Powerpuff Girls live action series. For those who don't know, this series isn't going to be them as kids, it's going to be them as adults dealing with the issues and the trauma of them being superheroes as they were kids, as essentially they didn't have a typical normal childhood. So I've always thought that was a really interesting premise. They had some decent casting, and Chloe Bennett is probably the most prominent one. For those who don't know, Chloe Bennett played Skylar or Quake in Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And honestly, I've always really enjoyed her. She was actually one of the standout characters for me. Now, I'm not sure where you stand with this. Some people like her, some people don't like her, but I think she's actually was one of the better characters. Now, this is my thing. When the pilot did drop, it was not liked. And I think they even had a bit of the script itself was leaked online, and people didn't like it. And if the CW says they don't like the pilot, it was probably bad. But then again, it was probably good, and CW tends to mess up stuff sometimes. So it was probably good, and they just decided to make it bad. But now, what they were saying is it was scheduling conflicts. And as most people do suspect, and most people do know, that typically means went on. Now, whether it was on her part or CW's part, I don't know. This is what I kind of wanted to talk about, because I'm like, well, it was scheduling conflicts. Let me see what she's got going on. Maybe she's got a bunch of movies getting ready to come out. She's also starting another series or something like that. And so far, from what I could tell, she has nothing going on right now. So it's like, what scheduling conflicts is it? Now, like I said, I'm one of like the 5 people that actually want to see the series. The Powerpuff Girls has been one of my favorite IPs since I was a kid. I really enjoyed the Powerpuff Girls. I like the movie. I like the new series. It's a bit more childish and tame, because for those who don't know, the original Powerpuff Girls did have a bit of adult humor in it. Some of the themes and stuff that they talked about was pretty mature, but it still remained childlike and overall. But it still had its adult moments in it. And now the Powerpuff Girls Z, hell no, that is one of the worst anime I've ever seen in my freaking life. And I hope the person that came up with that idea just so like kick him in the shin or something like that. Go back to the drawing board and never draw and write again. Well, the animation wasn't that bad. I can deal with that. But the story and the writing sucked. Interesting premise, but it still sucked. But I wonder how bad it was for Bennett to actually just kind of step away from it. Was it that bad to the point it would affect her career? Because if it could, look, if done properly, and this is an interesting IP to adapt to live action, and I've actually had interest in seeing it particularly if they were young girls. The biggest example of this I could say is if they mashed, I don't know, Stargirl with Supergirl. And like, Pretty Little Liars meets Stargirl and Supergirl, and there you have it. That's your pop-up girls, young girls having to deal with mysteries, being superheroes and stuff. And I felt like that would be much more of an interesting. If I feel like that formula would fit better. As far as them being older, because you got to think about this, how we going to portray these other characters. A lot of these characters were goofballs. They were idiots. They were stupid. You know what I'm saying? They were funny. They were comedic characters. How is that going to translate to live action? The villains. How prominent are the villains going to be? Are they going to be? Because they were obscure. You know what I'm saying? They weren't like typically the most serious of characters. I mean, if you say, hey, Mojo Jojo, him, Princess, like those characters, I can see those characters actually being live action. But like, what about the Gangrene Gang? What about Fuzzy Lumpkins? What about the Amoeba Boys? You know what I'm saying? Like characters like those, are they going to be in it? If they are they going to be stupid? You know what I'm saying? Are they going to be funny? Are they going to be serious? Those are some interesting points that I would like to point out. But as far as Chloe Bennett, I feel like even if the show would have sucked, I think a lot of people would have flocked to see it just for her. Because like I said, the other two chicks, I don't know who them chicks are. You know what I'm saying? She is the most prominent one, and I would have liked to have seen her be in it. Even though the casting is completely terrible. The casting is terrible. But honestly, now that I think about it, I'm like, are the Powerpuff Girls, what are they? Are they three little white girls? So, I don't know. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like her leaving is going to potentially kill it. I mean, maybe they could get somebody else to replace her. Maybe they can reshoot the pilot, because pilots come first in the series if the pilot's well received. So as I said, I want to see it. I feel bad that she's out of it, because I feel like she could have brought something that she would not only bring some type of talent to it, especially with her performance, but also I think the huge following that she's got from Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that following could have potentially been on board with this, and I'm not sure where they're going to sit right now. Now, moving on to subject 2, we're going to have Idris Elba voicing Knuckles, the Echidna, from in the Sonic 2. Now, for those who don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog came out like maybe 2 years ago, I want to say, maybe 3, but I think it's like 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I still haven't seen the damn movie. It has been hailed as the best video game adaptation movie of all time. It's easy to see why. I've seen clips of it. I've seen little interviews here and there, little tidbits on it, but I haven't actually seen the movie. And you're like, Narik, so how in the hell could you sit there and say it's a good movie if you hadn't even seen it yet? And I'm like, you got a point. I'm just going with the crowd on this one, which is kind of cool, because in my previous Streamline podcast, I talked about the Suicide Squad, which Idris Elba was in, and now I'm talking about this Sonic 2, which Idris Elba is going to be voicing Knuckles. Knuckles is one of my all-time favorite Sonic the Hedgehog characters, and I like the setup from what I can see of the first movie, and I'm interested to see how they're going to continue it in the sequel. But Idris Elba being on board, you can't go wrong with that. He was the police chief in Zootopia, and I thought he did a really good voice performance. He was also Shere Khan in the Jungle Book reboot that came out a few years ago, and he did a fantastic job with that movie. So I could definitely see how he would do Knuckles. He's got edge to his voice, there's presence to his voice, there's character to his voice, and I like seeing people that can do pretty good performances. And like I said, he's done good voice performances from what I can tell, and I haven't seen him do a bad one yet. You know what I'm saying? So seeing Knuckles, portraying Knuckles, is going to be on point. Now, Knuckles was introduced in the Sonic franchise in 1994 with Sonic 3, where he was originally an antagonistic force against Sonic helping Dr. Eggman, but Dr. Eggman was actually lying to him, manipulating Knuckles, of course, trying to get the Master Emerald and saying, hey, this Sonic character is coming here to get it, but we work together, he won't get it. So, and Knuckles is kind of like the Vegeta of, well, at first he's like the Vegeta of the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, but then, later on, I think Shadow becomes the Vegeta character. So Knuckles is like the Piccolo of the Sonic the Hedgehog universe because he eventually becomes a good guy. And Knuckles is one of the most prominent figures of the franchise. So it's good seeing him be picked up for the sequel. Now, why in the hell he hasn't been put as a playable character in Super Smash Bros. Yet? I don't know, but Nintendo, y'all need to get on that. Y'all got Sonic the Hedgehog, put Knuckles in it. In fact, Tails need to be in it, and Dr. Eggman. They've all three got interesting movesets, unique abilities, and special skills that could make for some interesting characters, playable characters to get into the fight with. Hell, they got King K. Rool. But anyways, Idris Elba, this definitely is something I very, 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 very want to see. Also, Ben Schwartz is coming back as Sonic. Jim Carrey's coming back as Dr. Eggman. So I'm glad to see that they're actually going to stick with this and make something good out of it. Now, I'm interested to see if they're going to make what else they're going to go with this. Are they going to try to branch it off with individual characters? Hey, I just thought about it. It's like, is Tails going to be in this movie? But like I said, I haven't seen the first movie, so I don't know if Tails was in the first movie. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. But as I said, Idris Elba is not only a good good actor, he's one of my favorite actors, and I'm glad to see that he is again branching out, just doing different things. Sci-fi. He's doing sci-fi, thriller, horror, action, comedy, animated, and now he's jumping on another. He's going in the video game ones apparently. So I'm glad to see Idris Elba is doing his thing. Now, let's talk about the more Monsterverse movies. I do want to see. More Monsterverse movies because there are a lot of IPs. There are a lot of quit saying IPs so much. But Legendary has confirmed that there are more Monsterverse movies coming. Now, one of the ones people have been talking about, debating about should they make is a Pacific Rim meets slash Godzilla, Pacific Rim slash Monsterverse. I'm on the fence about that. Now, I'll get into that discussion later, but let me go ahead and go on to my talking points. Now, I'm interested to see more Godzilla films and more Kong films. Not necessarily see those two characters together, but possibly come back together later on down the line. But of course, come up with their own individual stories. Perhaps have Godzilla do more things on the surface, while Kong has to deal with more stuff in the Hollow Earth. Space Godzilla would be an interesting concept, but I'm just throwing it out there, people. Now, my biggest problem, and a lot of the problems that people have with the Monsterverse movies, typically are A, stories, and B, the human characters. And I think a lot of times that I take a step back on some of the drama and stuff that's going on, and do pull back on some of the human characters, we can actually focus more into the monsters, which Godzilla vs. Kong did a really good job of giving these characters the spotlight, giving them the screen time that they do deserve. I just wish they could have pulled a little bit back on some of the characters. They're interesting storylines, and I think because of how saturated the stories are a bit so far in the past 3 or 4 movies, Kong Skull Island wasn't bad as far as story. It was actually a good survival story that felt like it worked. Godzilla 2014, good solid story that feels like it worked. Godzilla King of the Monsters, a bit convoluted, especially now that all of these kaiju are everywhere. Even with the Godzilla versus Kong, or Kong versus Godzilla, no, it was Godzilla versus Kong. too many storylines. I've always said since I watched that movie, the Hollow Earth should have been introduced, and then the next Kong movie is them going into the actual Hollow Earth to actually explore it, because there could be a whole bunch of other monsters down there that we haven't seen yet, both new and old, that could have been a good, interesting survival story, as well as a good story for fleshing out a bit more of where Kong's past and his family and lineage and this, stuff comes from. But unfortunately, Godzilla vs. Kong took too much of that and put it into the movie when it shouldn't have. That should have been the last thing that they did in that movie. They should have been Godzilla Kong fight. The Mecha Godzilla shows up, and at the end of it, Kong goes into the Hollow Earth, and then we follow him and we split. And then the next one should have been Kong in the Hollow Earth, exploring it, trying to find out about his origins, fighting new monsters, fighting old monsters. That would have been a good storyline, but they had to mash everything up. But let me stop complaining about that. I think it is an interesting idea for them to go back into that, as well as give us a bit more diversity with Godzilla. Now, the only way they could actually do a good job of actually introducing these characters, honestly, is that they actually had a good story and focus more on the human characters, because to just follow Godzilla it's going to feel too typical. So, of course, we got to jump into the human drama. And honestly, outside of the Monsterverse movies and possibly the 1999 version of Godzilla, all the other Godzilla movies, I did not give a damn about the story, and I damn sure didn't care about the characters. All the Toho, all the old ones, I hated the characters. I hated the stories. I hated almost every aspect of those movies outside of the giant monsters. At least I could say with the Monsterverse, I actually do care about some of the characters. I actually do think some of the stories are actually rather interesting and actually do something for the actual setting and all the monsters and stuff like that. But going back to what I was saying about potential Pacific Rim versus Godzilla or versus Monsterverse, I think it's an interesting idea. And at first I didn't think it was. I have been thinking about it, and I've heard more discussions of it, and I'm like, it does make, it would be a very interesting premise. Now, as far as it being a crossover, would the Pacific Rim fit into the narrative of the Monsterverse, or would the Monsterverse fit into the narrative of Pacific Rim? I don't know, but because of the giant monsters and stuff, I think it would fit more of the Monsterverse being put into the Pacific Rim universe rather than the Pacific Rim universe being put into the Monsterverse. Hey, giant robots versus Godzilla. What if Godzilla ended up going underwater, swims into a breach and everything, and then ends up having to fight these giant robots, and then another, which now I think about, I think that would be a pretty good idea. Godzilla's underwater, swims through a breach, the Pacific Rim, apparently, and finds himself in this different world, has to fight different monsters, finds himself fighting these giant robots. I think it is an interesting idea, and I like the fact that I just came up with that, because I am a beast and I like coming up with really good ideas. But those are just my general thoughts about this. Guys, let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Do you think it was a good move for Chloe Bennett to go ahead and leave the CW's Powerpuff Girls called Powerpuff? I actually like that title, Powerpuff. It's true to the Powerpuff Girls without changing it too much. But also, Idris Elba is going to be playing Knuckles. What are your thoughts about that? And also, Godzilla / Kong Monsterverse movies. Do you think they should continue it? Do you think they should have stopped with Godzilla versus Kong? Do you think it would be an interesting idea or a good idea to actually have the Monsterverse, versus Pacific Rim movie be made? I personally think it would be an interesting idea. But alright then, be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, guys, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on. And as I've said, continue to join us every week. We're going to be putting out more and more videos. So having said that, we'll definitely catch you guys later. See you.